Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is conduct. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might hear the verb conduct used is to mean to organize and carry out. I've actually heard this verb used a few times in the last few days. I've received random phone calls and the person on the other end has said, we're conducting some research or we're conducting a survey. Right? So they're organizing questions and gathering answers and figuring out things connected to the U.S. election, really. So the second way you might hear conduct used is to mean to lead or guide someone to or around a particular place. One way you might hear this used is in regard to museums or other sort of educational related experiences, right? So you might hear they are conducting tours of a particular exhibit or other event. A third way to use the verb conduct is to mean to direct the performance of a piece of music. Right? So I think for most people, if you can envision an orchestra with a number of talented musicians playing, there's a person in the front kind of doing, right, with their hands. Perhaps they have another instrument to help with that, but they're telling people when to start playing their instrument and when to stop. A fourth way to use this verb is to mean to behave in a specified way. And I'll point out with this definition, you're oftentimes going to hear a reflexive pronoun used after this verb. It might sound a little bit something like, he conducted himself, and then describing, either in a positive way or a negative way. Or they will conduct themselves. And again, somehow describing the way in which they behaved. The fifth way we could use this verb is really heavily connected to science. So it's all about how we transmit a particular form of energy. This could be heat, it could be electricity, etc. So you might hear conduct used in your science classes or your study of science. You should know that conduct is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we're going to do is add ing to form conducting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Since the base verb ends in a t or t sound, the ed is going to make an id sound. Conducted, conducted. You might be relieved to know that I only have one additional definition that combines a phrasal verb with our verb of the day. And it actually ties back a little bit to an earlier meaning we looked at. So you might hear that someone conducted someone else out of a particular place. I don't think this is something you'll hear a great deal or very often. I think it might be more likely as you're reading an older story. This also might be a little more common in British English than American English, but it essentially means that you are leading someone or something out of a particular place. So here's an example sentence. The usher conducted the noisy guests out of the theater. Right? So it's the idea of leading them out. You can't stay, you're making too much noise. This week, we're going to continue to focus on contrasting active versus passive voice. So as a little reminder here, in active voice, we begin the sentence with the subject, the person or thing that is doing or that is responsible for a particular action. I have two examples today. Tim cleans the house each week. Leslie writes notes. These are both examples of sentences that are describing habits or routines. A passive voice sentence, instead, though, is going to begin with the person or the thing that is being acted on. So you may not even see a mention of the person or the thing who is responsible for the action or who is doing the action. If that person is included, you're going to see the name or the description of whomever that may be at the end of the sentence. And the preposition by will come right before it. So I took the first sentence, Tim cleans the house each week, and I made it into passive voice. I could say, the house is cleaned, or I could say, the house is cleaned by Tim. And I could tack on each week. I didn't, just to save a little bit of space. I also took the second example. Leslie writes notes, and I changed it to passive. Notes are written, or notes are written by Leslie. So as a little bit of a review, many people always ask, why do we have this? Why are we doing this? And sometimes it's because we don't know who is responsible for the action. But we know the action occurred or that the action will occur, and we want to communicate that. Another reason that people may use the passive voice is because they want us to really focus on, or they want the emphasis on the object, the person or the thing that is being acted on. The person who is actually doing the action just may not be that important. So again, they want to kind of shift our focus onto the thing or person that's receiving the action. So today we're going to continue to look at some simple present sentences. We'll look at them in active voice and in passive voice. Each sentence is going to have roughly the same meaning. I have just sort of changed it around. And so I looked for passive voice sentences that were present in different articles. And in some cases, I had to do a little research to figure out who or what was doing the action in order to make my active voice examples. So I, again, really try and find authentic things for us to look at. So let's take a look first at the affirmative simple voice, simple present in the active voice. So here is an example sentence. Researchers conduct monthly surveys in order to see if people are able to access COVID-19 tests. Okay, so here we again have this action that is repeating or recurring. We're talking about a group of researchers, so we're just using the base verb. If I had been talking about a single researcher, right, I would have added an S to the end of my verb in the simple present. To make passive voice in the simple present, I'm going to use a present form of be, so am, is, are, and then I'm going to use the participle form of the verb. So here's, again, sort of same idea, but a passive voice sentence. The survey is conducted monthly in order to see if people are able to access COVID-19 tests. So again, here, I think the writer really wanted us to focus, again, on the survey and not so much on who's doing the survey. Next, let's take a look at negative sentences. In active voice, to make a negative simple present sentence, we're going to use do not and then the base verb, or does not and the base verb. You might hear the contraction forms don't or doesn't from native speakers. Here's an example sentence. Medical examiners don't conduct autopsies for every person who dies. So the word autopsy might be a new word for you, and this might sound a little gruesome, but again, it was something that jumped out at me as I was looking at different examples of conduct. An autopsy really is just a study of what caused someone's death, an examination that, again, is done after a person has passed away. So if I instead want to use passive voice, again, I'm going to go back to my present form of be, but I'll insert not, then the participle. Autopsies aren't conducted for every person who dies. Finally, let's look at making yes or no questions. In the active voice, I'm going to start with do or does, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Do judges conduct hearings by video or phone? Right? This might be a question about what their new habits or new routines may be due to the pandemic. But again, instead, I just want to focus on the thing that is being acted on. So here, it's the hearings, the judicial proceedings. If I want to make a yes or no question in the passive voice, I'm going to start with the present form of be. Then we'll have that object, the thing that's receiving our action, followed by the participle. Here's the last example. Are the hearings conducted by video or phone? Right? And again, the general idea is like, of course, we know who's in charge of that. It's a judge, because we're talking about court hearings. Now, let's take a look at some words that are related to our verb to conduct. The first is a noun form of the same word. So, same spelling, but this time we do have a different pronunciation. And this happens in a number of words in English where the verb and noun forms have slightly different pronunciation. So as I've been saying the verb conduct, hopefully you can hear I'm putting stress on the last syllable in the word, conduct. Okay? But when I use the noun form, I'm going to put stress on the beginning of the word, and the vowel sound is going to change just a little bit, right? So the noun form will be pronounced conduct. Hopefully we can hear the difference. So the noun form, conduct, can have a couple of different meanings, just like our verb. One way to think of this is to think of the manner in which a person behaves. So another synonym for this, just behavior, right? So here is an example of that usage in a sentence. Students with bad conduct may not get recess, right? That might be a sentence that strikes fear in the heart of young students. Oh no, I don't want to lose my recess because of bad behavior. Another way to use this noun is to mean the action or manner of managing an activity or an organization. So here is an example sentence that I saw recently in an article. A complaint was made about the campaign's conduct in sharing misleading voter registration information. So here we are talking about a group of people who are in charge of trying to get one person elected, and we're talking about their actions or the way they were managing the re-election activity. And they were trying to trick some people into registering too late. So that would be an example of some really bad conduct, right? Bad behavior. The next word we're going to look at is conductor. So again, we're going to shift the stress again on this particular noun. It's going to sound, the first part of the word again will sound closer to my verb pronunciation. So this word can also have a few different meanings. One meaning is a person who directs the performance of an orchestra or a choir. Here is an example of that usage. The conductor chose a difficult piece of music. A second meaning for this noun is a person in charge of a train. who maybe collects fares, sells tickets, etc. Has other job responsibilities, again, generally on a train. So, an example of that usage. Train conductors work on passenger and freight trains. The last way we might use this particular noun is to mean a material or device that transmits heat, electricity, or sound. So this is connecting back to the fifth definition for our verb that we spoke about earlier in this video. Here's an example of that usage. Most metals are considered to be good conductors of electricity. So they are really good at transmitting electricity. That's the meaning there. And again, you might hear this noun used in your science course or your science studies in additional ways, having an even stronger, more technical definition than what we've discussed here. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.